Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem, it's a habit.
Yeah, listen, we're hopefully we're gonna make a siyum on the parak. It's been a long parak. So on Kuf Lamed Ches Amid Beis, right in the middle, the two dots in the middle of the Yam. Tanaraban, Shchemei Rasha Amar, Monash Yeshli Eitzel Pliny. A Shchemei who says, normally we talk about a Shchemei who's giving money away. But over here we're talking about a Shchemei who makes a declaration. He says, everyone should know I'm not giving away money. I spent everything I had and I'm coming to the end with nothing in my bank account. Not only do I not have any money, I owe money to this other guy. The Shchemei is Reuben. He says, I owe money. I'm sorry. I am owed money by Pliny. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Money yeshli etzel Pliny. I am owed money by Pliny. The din is ha'edim kaisven afa pisha ein makirin. The edim are allowed to write this down. They can write down his claim. Says that, and they say that he said, Reuben said, Shimon owes me money. Afa pisha ein makirin. Even though they don't know the facts of the matter, but they're writing, this is what he said. Lefikach kishu goiva sarach lehevi raya. Therefore, when he dies, and now the children are trying to use this piece of paper which says on it that Levi and Yehuda testify that the Shchemei said he's owed money, you're going to have to bring a raya. Just the fact that they wrote it down that the Shchemei claimed he was owed money is not enough because because he claimed it doesn't make it true. Excuse me. The thing is, they can't write such a document memorializing his claim that puts down on paper the claim of the Shchemei that he's owed money. They can't write such a thing and sign themselves to it unless they themselves investigated and determined that what he said is true. They went to the person who he's saying owes him money, and they checked and they asked him, and he said yes. So therefore, we know what they wrote down is true. Therefore, when the Yarshim show up with this piece of paper that says that Adam testified that the Shchemei was owed money, that said he's owed money, that's enough to be gaiva. They don't have to provide any independent verification of what's stated in the star, because the Adam never could have signed it without independently determining the truth of what was said in the star. Amr of Nachman, Amali Huna. Nachman said, I was told by Huna Tana, we have a Tana who said, Remeir Aimer, Ein Kaisvin. We learned from the Tanaim, Remeir Aimer, Ein Kaisvin. Remeir says, you can't write. It means you're not allowed to write down this star unless you determine that it's true. But Chamam Kaisvin. The Chamam say, you can write. So this is exact opposite. This is a Tana that had it precisely the opposite Tanoim, saying Remei is saying now the Shita that was ascribed to the Chachamim. The Chachamim are saying that of Remei. The Chachamim say you can write it even though it wasn't determined, and therefore you can't depend on the fact that this star was written, because maybe it was written even though the Adam don't know that it's true. Rameir says you can't write it unless it's true, and therefore you can depend on it. But Rameir le'amar elamishum bezdin tight. That which Rameir said ain't kaisvin. The reason why he said you can't write such a star is because we were afraid that maybe another bezdin will come and enforce what's said in the star, even though it just says that it was written that the Shchemera said he was owed money, maybe another Bezdin will mistakenly give it credence without any further corroboration, and therefore one can't write it unless it was corroborated by the Eidim. So therefore, once there is such a rule that it has to be corroborated by the Eidim, we can't actually be saimach on it. Amar Reb Dimi min Hardoid. Hilchasa halacha is ein chayshin lebezdin tayin. Halacha is we're not worried about a bezdin making a mistake, and therefore that would follow is you can write this star even with Eidim that haven't checked to see that it's true, and therefore one cannot use such a star to get the money from the person that the Shchemera said is he owes him money, because we don't know if it's true or not. We're not chayshish. We don't disallow any such star because we're chayshish for a bezdin time. One cannot, a bezdin is not allowed to do chalitza. A chalitza is, right, if a man died and he left over a wife and he had no children and he has a brother, bezdin cannot allow that brother to do chalitza elam kein makir, unless they know all the facts. They know that there's no other brother. They know that there's no that this is Taka, his brother. What if this person, maybe this woman, knows there's a brother out in Alaska and she just hired a stand-in to act as a brother, give a chalitza, and then she'll be free without having to track down the real brother who's in Alaska. So we say ein choltzin, bezdin cannot do a chalitza unless they know that the person who's doing the chalitza is really a brother. Be'ein memalin. Similarly, there's a din miyan if a woman was married off by her mother rather than being married off by her father as a katana, which is only a kedushin derabanan. So when she reaches the age of godless, before she reaches godless, she can just say, "I want to decline this marriage." You say this din elam kein makir, unless bezdin recognizes, unless they're informed about the situation of who these people are, that they know that this is a valid miyat. Lefikach. Therefore, since the rule is that bezdin cannot do this unless they themselves know what's going on, kais and get chalitza, we get miyan. If someone is observing a chalitza or someone is observing a miyan, they can go ahead and write down a star that I saw that this woman has chalitza and she has a miyan. So what's the reason? So you see from here that we are chayshish the bezdin tayin, because if not for that fact, maybe bezdin would allow her to do the miyan without corroborating, and they'll say that we just saw it, but we don't know if it's true or not, and whoever writes this down will have to then corroborate themselves. And the fact that we say we allow them to write it down must be that we are chayshish for bezdin tayin, and therefore we would never allow them to do the chalitza or the miyan unless they corroborated it independently, unless the first bezdin checked into it. No. So that's not a right. That's not a kasha. Bezdin basa bezdin basa beidina daiki. Bezdin basa eidim daiki. You can't compare the two cases. That which we said over here that we are not chayish for a bezdin tayin, and therefore we can trust somebody a shchemera who said, and therefore we can trust a shchemera because we're not chayshish for a bezdin tayin, that a further bezdin is going to use it, and therefore we don't force them to corroborate. That's where we're talking about Eidim. Bezdin, a second bezdin will know to check into something that's said by Eidim, but by this din of whether you can trust that a bezdin that had done a chalitza or a miyan had checked into the facts behind it, That's different. That's talking about where a second Bezdin would corroborate, would believe what a first Bezdin did. So therefore, the second Bezdin would make a mistake when where they're depending on a first Bezdin, that has more nemadas by them. So therefore, the second Bezdin is chayshish to make a mistake when they're going off of what the first Bezdin had done. So that's the Mishnah. Ha'av toilish umachal l'chol misha yirtza. A father. We're talking about back to the case, which we've been talking about for the last couple of blocks, where a father wants to, we've always given the example, someone who wants to live in their house, so he gives to the children the house after Misa, but in the meantime, he wants to have the use of the house. So he's keeping the Paris, but he's giving away the actual bias. In this case, we're talking about a karka. So he's giving over a karka, but he wants to have the Paris until he dies. He wants to have his parnas. So Av Toilish, while the father still has the karka before his death, he can harvest the fruit of the karka, and he can give it to whoever he wants. He can give those Paris to whoever he wants. That which he leaves over when he dies, and now there's Yoshim because it's really his. It doesn't go to us, as we'll see in the Gemara. It doesn't go to that person. It goes to It's part of the Yerusha because since it was taken from the ground, it's part of the Paris. It's not part of the karka that was left over for the recipient of the gift. So that's the Gemara. The Gemara asks on the first part of which we said the father could be tested, that he can give to it's mashma. What he gives over, he can give over. But that which is mechubal karka, it's not. He can't give it up. He can't give it up. That's not. The mechuber belongs to whoever gets the karka, whoever he had given the permanent right to get the karka after he dies, because it's part of the karka. In fact, the Marvatanya shaman esa mechubarin lulekeach. It's so the Rashbam explains machar haben. I'm sorry, but the sefta the ksuba sushniya machar haben umeisa av. If there are nechasim that are mechubarim, we make we're talking about over here where the son had sold his rights to the karka, right? This is a son who is supposed to get ultimately the karka, or at least we're understanding now it's the son who is supposed to get the karka. So we say if that son had sold the karka prior to the death of the father, who was in the meantime eating the pears, and now the father died. So if there are nechasim, if there are pears that are mechubal karka, so we make a shuma and we determine how much it is, so it should go to him. Let's continue with the Rashbam. Again, so we're talking about where the son had sold these nechasim. This lekeach, this person who purchased from the son, is zeicha in that which the son had sold him the guf of the karka. The lekeach is not entitled to those nechasim mechubar. All he got is the actual karka. But Paris, but the Paris, even though they're mechubar, they're not considered to be part of the karka, and they don't go to this son who is entitled to get it. So this is fakert from we just said. Our Mishnah said only the talush, only that which is separated is considered to be part of the Yerusha. It gets distributed to the brothers. It's not part of the gift. But that which is the mechuba is part of the father's original gift to the son. And this Bryce is saying the other way around, that even what's mechuba, there's going to be a shuma, and you're going to distribute it to the Yarshim. So Kumrali Kasha, Kam b'mnoi, Kam ba'acha. Says, even though the Rashbam had given the example of where he was giving it to his son, it's not talking about where he gave it to his son, he gave it to someone who's not his son, or his son who's not supposed to be the Yerush. So, in our Mishnah, where we're talking about where he's giving to the son, so the mechuber, I'm sorry, mechuber, then we said in our Mishnah that the mechuber is considered to be part of the Yerusha. That's talking about where he gave to an achar. The achar, he doesn't have such warm feelings to. So that which he's giving him after he dies, he doesn't intend to include in that the mechuber. But in the case of Shamnat Mechubarim Lekech, that's talking about he's giving to his son. His son, he wants to give him an expanded right. So he's giving him even that which is mechuber is considered to be part of the gift, and it's not going to go to the other brothers. I think I got that right. I mean, I know I got the svar right. The question is if I got the cases right, if I got the Bryce and the Mishnah. We show him in the mechubarim to lekeach. The lekeach who gets it, because he's his son. Yeah, he's representing the son, so he gets more. The first one I was talking about was la'ach.
Yeah. And he'd want his son to get the Paris.
Right. It's like the Mishnah. If a man died and he left over sons who are older and so younger, the older sons cannot say, you know what, let's split up dad's estate, and everybody could go to I'm trying to think of a fancy store, Emporio, and buy suits with the estate. Because obviously the kids, the 8-year-olds, this is like in the olden days where 8-year-olds, there was a limit to how much money you could spend on their clothes. Basically, getting onesies, they're getting overalls, so that will cost $5. And the older kids, the 20-year-olds, they're fitting themselves out with $800 suits. So you can't say let's everyone take from before we divide the Yerusha. Let's divide up. Everyone could take the clothing that they need. And some fakert, the younger children have a lot more needs to be nisparnas. They're not self-sufficient. So every expense of theirs for food and medicine and orthodontists, all that stuff is much more expensive than gdalim. So you can't say everyone could get their mizainis from the estate. Ella cholkim b'shava. Ella, if in order for people to take their expenses from the state, they have to divide it up. If it's 5 brothers and it's $500, everyone gets $100, and they spend it as they wish. Nasu hagdailim, if the older brothers went ahead and used the money that their father had left over before splitting it up to get married, they spent it on their chassan expenses. Yisu aktanim, the ktanim are entitled to copy them. If the younger brothers say, we want to marry ourselves in the same manner that our brothers married themselves off, we don't listen to them. The Gemara is going to explain that this is talking about where the brothers, is a very common scenario, right? The brothers had already been previously married prior to the father's death, and he married them off in the Hilton. And now the father died, and they're living on Social Security, and they have a life insurance of $100,000 that has to be divided up. And the younger brother says, "Listen, I want to use the whole $100,000 to rent the Hilton for my wedding." And so the thing is that just because even though we said that if the brothers were married off from the estate, the younger brothers can be married off at the same standard. That's only because they were married from the estate. But if were married off by the father, that doesn't tell us anything about how you're going to marry off the brothers afterwards. They're not entitled. It's not a life is life. You gotta deal with it. Hiniach bonos gedolos ketanis. This second part of the Mishnah is really a total copy of this first part, but it's talking about whether instead of there were being sons who were left over, he only had daughters. So as we know, if there are no sons and daughters, Yarshin, so if you're left over daughters that are older and younger, the older ones can't decide to take their clothing from the Yerusha. And the younger ones can't take mezainis from the Yerusha and force the Gedalis to go along with that. They have to divide up the Yerusha evenly. If the older ones got married, the young ones can get married as well from the estate. And again, the Ktanas can't say we want to get married, we want to be supported from the estate to get married the same way that our father married off our sisters during his lifetime. This is the reason why we're mentioning daughters as opposed to sons.
We'll mention that last piece.
What do you mean?
Only death could happen after death.
That's this last part. If that's talking about after death. If they want to be
before, I'm saying that right. They didn't do
we had mentioned this is the exact same lesson that we.
Then at the end of the first book, the bottom we said,
This is the same lesson. It's the same. It's the same lesson. Talking about the same thing, where they want to get married in the style that their father had married them while he was alive. We don't listen to them. However, this is the chaimer of daughters. Keneged banim. This is the reason why. Why did the Mishnah repeat the exact same din by banis as it said by banim? Because there is one way, and banis are stronger than banim. If a man dies and he leaves over sons and daughters, the daughters are entitled to get mezainis. It's part of the ksuba of his wife that he obligates himself to provide for the mezainis of his daughters, like we've seen that we don't want daughters to have to go around b'chayzer l'psachim. So a person wants to have provision for his daughter to get mezainis. But if it's only daughters, like we said, if it's only daughters, then you don't take mezainis from the estate, but rather they have to divide it up and take care of themselves. Amar Rav, Hai Gadol Achi, the lavish ve'Ichsi mi beisa. So a son of older brother went ahead and he went to Emporio and he got himself a fancy suit. Ma'ida Avid, like we said in the Mishnah, he's not supposed to do it, but if he did it, it's okay. Our Mishnah said you cannot take your clothing from the estate. So we're talking about, and the Mishnah is talking about well, the older brother is not he's not really doing anything for business. He's not involved in any kind of productive enterprise. So he just wants to get clothing to hang out, to look good. So therefore, there's no reason to allow him to get clothing. So Gemara Shircha Pshita. Shircha is Pashat. The only reason, so the Gemara understands that the reason why we would allow an older brother to get clothing is because he's representing the interests of everyone. He's showing up to business meetings and he's like selling off the property. And therefore, it's kedai for him to look like a mensch. He'll have better luck in his business dealings. It'll be for everyone's benefit. But Shircha, if it's some brother who's not doing anything, it's Pashat that he shouldn't be allowed to take clothing. So one might say even a brother who's a good for nothing and not actually making any use of these clothing to help them in business, it's still the whole family is represented by him. Everyone looks at him, so they prefer that he should be well dressed. Kamashma on that, no. That's why our Mishnah says he can't go ahead and take clothing from the Yerusha, but this other what Rava said that the older brother can do it. That's about a brother who actually is engaged in representing his family in a productive manner. The Mishnah continues, Nasu G'daylim Yisuk Tanim. If the older daughters got married off, you could marry off the younger daughters. My kamar, Rav Yehuda Hachi kamar. Nisu gdolim la'acha misavim, yusuk tanim la'acha misavim. If the older daughters got married after the father's death, then the tanim can do so as well. Aval nasu gdolim mechayavin. But if the gedolim got married during the lifetime of the father, which is what we discussed before, they claim that they want to get married off in the same way. They're at a luck. They get the first ones, whatever the father gave them, he gave, and that has nothing to do with what happens to the Yerusha. This is a little bit complicated, and I have to tell you, I saw it a couple of times, and please keep an eye that I'm stating it correctly, because it goes back and forth a couple of times. Said in the Mishnah, if a father left over Gedolos Uktanas, the neither of them can take from the estate. Shachle avua bagneva l'rab yilamdeinu rabbeinu. What is it? Love saba'achla. What happens if a woman borrowed money and then she borrowed without a star, so it's a halva without a star, and she consumed whatever she had borrowed, and then she went ahead and she got married. And when she gets married, she brought with her nichsei maluk that now the parents belong to her husband. And then when she dies, if she dies before her husband will yarshin them in totality. So what is the Baal's status in this karka that she brought along with her as nichsei maluk? Baal lekech havi, a yirish havi. Is his status now? It's sort of the way I look at it is there's two parts to it, right? When he gets married, he's treated as he gets the Paris, and then when she dies, he accedes, he goes up, his status goes up. He's not just the owner of the Paris, he owns the whole thing. So do we say that when they got married, at that point, he is like a purchaser? He has, which is what he right now all he gets is the Paris. So maybe he's considered like someone who bought Paris. Or does he already have the status of like a Yerush?
So what would be the difference?
So the Gemara is going to say, like Chavi. So in this case, where she had borrowed money with a star, without a star. So if he's a like Chavi, if he would be considered to be a lekech, this man, this person that the woman had previously borrowed money from, cannot take. Should he's only a milval peh. He's not able to take from what she sold. Right? If Ruvain borrows money from Shimon, and then Ruvain and there's no star, and then Ruvain later on sells a piece of karka. Ruvain borrowed money from Shimon. Then Ruvain sells a piece of karka later on to Levi. Shimon cannot go to Levi and say, you have to give me the karka, even though his halva preceded the sale. But and normally we'd say the lien, whichever lien came first, has precedence. But since it's a milva without a star, the person who bought it has no way of knowing that there was a previous lien, and therefore that lien can't take effect against someone who purchased. So if this woman is considered to have sold the karka at the time of marriage, the lender to the woman is out of luck because he didn't make a malva with a star. He's a milval peh. Or maybe he's considered Yerush. That's this whole thing that we say that a milva al peh gets dinged when property is sold because he should have been aware that if it's only al peh, that there's no way the person knows it's sold. But if the person died, why should he lose out?
There's no title search to get a Yerusha.
Yeah, the person dies. That dies is it?
So you can't start saying, "Oh, there's no call. Who cares?"
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't he like a raya though? Or I guess he has Adam that happened.
So yeah, he has aid him. He has an aid. Amalei. So this is a question. Does he have the status of a lekech or a Yerush? Amalei Tnina. I'll prove it to you from a mission, from our Mishnah. Nasuk Dailis, Yisuk Tanis. My love. What is this case of Nasuk Dailis, Yisuk Tanis? My love, Nasuk Dailis Labal. Is it not talking about if the older sisters got married to a husband and they used the Gemara is the way the Rashbam explained. This is talking about where the older daughters had taken money from the estate without the permission of the younger daughter. Yisu Katanas Mibal. The younger daughters can then go extract the money that was owed to them by the older sister, because they had taken money from the state without permission. They can go ahead and take the money away from the husband of the older sisters, because we're understanding that they're like Yarshim. The husband is like a Yerush, and these younger sisters are owed the money because the older sisters took it from the state without permission, disproportionately, and they're able to take it from the Baal because he's only considered to be a Yerush, and a Milval Peh can't be taken from a Yerush. So this is like a whole different understanding of the mission than what we had talked about. But that's the Gemara is saying, is presuming that that's what we mean, right? You're looking, making that face, so you don't see that in the words.
I don't see in the words. I don't understand what since it says Teretz. How you see from here, Yerusha?
Because we're assuming that what happened here is that the older daughters got married from the estate,
right,
and they took more than what they were entitled to, and therefore they created a shibud to the younger daughters. They now owe that money to the younger daughters.
when they get married.
They owed stamazay. They're forgetting about the younger daughters getting married. They owe the money. They took money from the state that wasn't there, so they owe it to the younger daughters. But obviously they spent it on getting married. So when they got married, now that money is by their husband. It's a nichsei melug of their husband. We're saying the katanas can go ahead and take it from the husband.
How do you see this, Yerusha, then?
Because like we said, from a lekech, if it's considered like a lekech, a bal chayv, now in this case the younger daughter is the bal chayv.
Right.
A bal chayv cannot take from the husband if it's a lekech, because she's only a milval peh. But she can take it. It must be yeah. It's nothing is seen here in the Mishnah. So Gemara like Nasuk Dailis Labal, Yisuk Tanis Labal. Whereas says no, it's like we originally explained the Mishnah. It's not what the
Midbal.
Yeah, it's not right. It's not Midbal, it's Libal. It's the case that just like the older brother, the sisters can take money from the Yerusha to get married, the young ones can also. Meaning nothing to do
from the state,
from this
the husband and the guy.
Yeah, nothing to do with any conflict. I think we're gonna have to stop here because this is gonna go on till the end of the block. For sure. Listen, we'll stop here. Let's try. I don't know if it's gonna work for you, Rafael, but maybe we'll make a recording. Let's try to at least at a minimum